Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Matthew Heimbach.
All right. How's everyone doing today?
Good.
Well, I have to say, it truly is an honor to be here with every single one of you. Because there's a lot of things that you could be doing early on a Saturday morning. You could be sleeping in. You could be preparing to go do a cookout, to go watch a game with your neighbors or things like that. You could be trying to catch up on the chores that I know each and every single one of us has waiting for us at home. But you're here because of the most important principle that a man or a woman can do: the future of our children. The future of our children is a battle that must be fought by every single generation. It's a struggle that never stops. If one looks at the animal kingdom, one only has to look at the shark, which of course is one of the great predators of the seas. If a shark stops swimming, it dies. And very much like a people, if a people stops the struggle for survival, they will also die. So to open, it's such an honor to be with men and women, young and old, that understand the principle of tradition and of nationalism is not worshiping the ashes. It's maintaining the flame. It's continuing the struggle so that our people might survive. My talk today is Stop the Insanity. Reform is impossible. Now, the definition of insanity, as many of you know, is doing the same thing over and over again, and expecting different results. Someone would have to be absolutely insane to continue doing something that has failed and think something different is going to happen. We as a people, for too long, have been looking for the easy way out. And that's reforming the American empire. Because it doesn't take a lot to go cast a ballot every 2 or 4 years to think that the Republican Party is going to actually save us. That's the easy thing to do. It's a cop-out, but it doesn't work. And we talk about it. We see the pundits, we see people coming out, as Mr. Tubbs mentioned, the Tea Party and things like that, saying if only we held our elected representatives accountable, they would truly fight for our future. They would truly live up to their principles. But the system has been made against us. The system isn't failing. The system isn't incorrect. The system doesn't have to go back to what it was originally intended to be. No, from the very beginning, it was built against our people. One of the points I want to bring up is we talk with so many conservatives. And we, of course, are not conservatives. While we do want to conserve our people, our culture, and an identity as Southerners, and of course, as Europeans here in North America, we as nationalists do want to conserve our people. But we also want to push forward. But we don't want to conserve the shackles that hold us in bondage. And too often the conservative movement wants to do just that. Documents reflect. They never project. And when speaking about the Constitution, and speaking about many of the institutions that we have with us, there is a principle that people think when you're not a true nationalist, because nationalism is understanding. We had Pastor Fink up here talking from the Word of God. Let's go back to the Greek. The word nation in the Greek comes from ethnos, the very root word of ethnicity. One cannot separate the fact that your nation is made up of your people, bound together through thousands of generations of blood, of sacrifice, and of shared culture. A nation is not your passport. A nation is not the currency that you have in your pocket, and the nation is certainly not a document. The nation is your extended family. The Constitution, the Articles of Confederation, and other documents such as this, they reflected our people at a time when we were strong in our Christian faith, at a time where we had strong social unity and cohesion amongst ourselves. But the Constitution has always been what it's been. It was simply reflecting, much like the moon reflects the sun's rays, reflecting our people at that time. When our people were strong, when our people baptized our land with our blood and the blood of our enemies, fighting against the Indians, fighting against the French, fighting against the British, fighting against anyone, including the natural elements themselves, that would strip us of creating a home for our people. We have baptized this land in our sacrifices. And the institutions we initially set up reflected this. They reflected the warrior spirit of our southern men that proudly went forward from the time we landed on this soil, going back thousands of years to our time in Europe, to fight for our wives and our children and our God. It also reflected the feminine. We cannot forget, we have a great mix of folks here, men and women here, again, young and old. But we also can't forget the fact that our women in this struggle are as equal to the sacrifices of men. Because every battle we win on the battlefield, they win with the cradle. Because we could win any political or military objective. And it's not just having children, it is raising and nurturing our children with our traditions, with our identity. Every child that is brought into this world from our nation that will then carry on this flame is a battle as important as one we win in the political or the military sphere. Our institutions reflected these noble, chivalrous principles. But what do they reflect now? Well, the Constitution, in the name of freedom, in the name of human rights, which of course would be an absurdity to our ancestors, the ideas that rights are going to come from a piece of paper. We understand that rights and traditions, they come from Almighty God. And they also come from us as an extended family, where the rules we made for one another and how we could deal with one another were built on our shared experience. We're based on the fact that we had traditions, an organic culture. There was high trust within our society. But what is reflected now by the Constitution and the federal empire in general is gay marriage. Is that what the men of the Continental Army marched forward for? Were they freezing at Valley Forge to murder the unborn? Because let's just think about the scope of just abortion alone. We have lost more of our children, and of course, unfortunately, whites here in North America do the majority of abortions. We have lost more of our brothers and sisters than the Soviet Union and Germany lost in war casualties in World War II put together. Nearly 70 million unborn children have been killed by the United States empire, but it was in the name of freedom, right? Freedom of choice, freedom of my body, my rights. No responsibilities. That's what the Constitution now tells us. That's what the American empire tells us. It's about your rights. What about your duties to your kinsmen? Duties to your community? Duties to your nation? Well, that takes a lot of work. It's inconvenient. No, it's all about you as an atomized individual. We live in a society that is reflecting the values of our occupiers. And in the principle of reform, we must understand demographics are destiny. And we need to understand with the conservatives saying, if we just got a true constitutional conservative like Ted Cruz, he would absolutely make a new Zion on earth. He would make Israel as the mighty nation upon a hill for all the nations to look at. We will have the truest and greatest nation on the planet. Because family values cross the Rio Grande, don't they? Right? That's what I keep hearing. The social conservatives from Latin America are going to come and bring us this new age of family values and nationhood. Well, no, that's absolutely insane, because a nation is a people. But demographics is destiny. And the majority demographics of a nation, or in this case an empire, are going to be reflecting the people that make up the majority. The Constitution and the American empire are reflecting people that want you dead. There's no other way to cut it. That's not a hyperbole. That's not being over the top. It absolutely reflects wanting you and your children to either live as slaves, to have your symbols and your heroes destroyed. And let's not forget the fact that it isn't just tearing down our Confederate monuments. They're also trying to dig up men like General Nathan Bedford Forrest. They're also trying to dig up his wife. This isn't even about Confederate soldiers at that point. This is trying to go against anything that can be used to tie you to your ancestors. They want to destroy. This has been done before. It was done in former Rhodesia. Of course, Rhodesia was a proud nation, a Christian nation, a nation that fought against the entire world. And through the betrayal of the American empire, came crashing down. Our comrades in South Africa are facing genocide. But as Dr. Hill pointed out in a recent post, when they run out of stone, they come for the flesh. In South Africa, they tore down the monuments. They tore down the symbols. They tore the Afrikaner and the Boer people away from their heritage. The name of human rights comes again, doesn't it? This idea of human rights and equality. It just seems to end up with our genocide. It seems to keep happening that way. But no, and the idea of the brotherhood of man, they are fighting to destroy everything about us. We need to understand, if we stay in the American empire, our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren will never live as anything but slaves. Because the American system wants to disenfranchise them. And the Republicans have been shown, after what happened, I guess it was 2 years ago now, in South Carolina, the attacks on our flag began. Of course, it happened before that, the changing of the Georgia state flag in the name of being more inclusive, removing the Confederate battle flag from the Georgia state flag. They've been attacking our symbols for a while, but full bore, the war of genocide against our cultural symbols began 2 years ago. And what happened is actually a pretty exciting thing. The conservatives that could dog whistle to us, and have for decades, for generations actually, have dog whistled that, I can't say it, but I'm on your side, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Our people fell for that time and time again, but we actually have the exciting fact that we have now shown that these Republicans, these supposed proud sons and daughters of the South that represent us in state legislatures and represent us on Capitol Hill, actually hate us. There is no dog whistling because, like a scared child, when they're caught with their hand in the cookie jar of just defending the best interests of their constituents or defending their own ancestors, they flee, they apologize, they throw a temper tantrum, they cry, and every single time they abandon us. Of course, the philandering former governor of the state of Alabama, a true absolute disgrace to the great state of Alabama and her people. Former governor, what happens? He looked and he saw, oh, there's all this push against these Confederate monuments. Let us go to the State House and tear down these flags, because that'll increase my share of the black vote by 2%, right? That'll increase the Hispanic vote. We need to be thinking about the future of not only America, but of the South. Our conservative Republican politicians already have it planned in their heads that they are thinking of a post-white, a post-Southern Dixie. One where they are going to absolutely go hand in hand with the other globalists and the other anti-white organizers to displace us. They're hedging their bets, and they have hedged them with the enemy. We cannot work with these people. These people are not our friends. These people do not agree with us on any of the fundamentals that we are a distinct people and we have a right to exist. They are actively working to displace us. And our people have fallen for these tricks and dog whistles for a long time. If you look back at our history, it's very tragic. When you look at I hate to even use the phrase because we know it's the exact opposite of that, but the civil rights movement, civil rights, human rights, brotherhood of man, all that good stuff. The civil rights movement came forward, and our politicians at the time said, well, I will defend you. I will stand with you, men and women of the South. I will never let anything cross this line. I'm going to stand in the schoolhouse steps, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever. What happened? Wallace moved out of those steps. He did. And I know there are some of our older members here that probably voted for Wallace because he was the best option at the time. But when push came to shove, a man who had the entirety of his state behind him and the entirety of the South behind him, and let us not forget, not just the South. When Martin Luther King went to the suburbs of Chicago because legal segregation, well, that had been toppled by the Supreme Court, but whites can't be allowed to have their own communities anywhere. Because if we're allowed to just opt out of multiculturalism, Well, that means that we get to keep our own institutions, our own schools, our own businesses, and control over our own land. So it wasn't enough to get rid of legal segregation. They had to go against de facto segregation. They had to go against anywhere whites were, not just in the South, but around America, to forcibly integrate us with the forces of multiculturalism. Let us not forget that thousands of white men and women marched, along with men like Commander George Lincoln Rockwell and other patriots, outside of Chicago, of all godforsaken places. And what was one of the symbols they marched with? The Confederate battle flag. They marched because that is a symbol not only of the Southern people, but of white resistance to tyranny. There's a reason our comrades, when I've been over to Europe, and I've had the honor of going there several times, they have only banned me from the United Kingdom. They haven't banned me from the rest of Europe yet, but I'm sure that's coming. Every time I go to a nationalist-owned bar, or to their offices, they always love to show me their Confederate battle flag. That's a symbol I've seen. When I marched with my wife, actually, on our honeymoon, you know, some women want to go to the beach or enjoy things. My wife said, let's go to some nationalist rallies in Europe. So I'm truly a blessed and lucky man. But I marched with the Confederate battle flag in Brno in the Czech Republic on the anniversary of the fall of communism in their nation. And I got the most support from that flag of people, not just nationalists, of just normal, everyday Czechs walking up and saying, it is amazing to see this symbol. This means that you are rebelling against tyranny. And then they tell me their troubles with the European Union. They view their desire to be free and independent from Brussels and the bankers and the globalists that hold them in slavery. They feel a relationship with our struggle, not just 150 years ago, or 60 years ago, or today. There is a kinship amongst Europeans where our symbols, we have been seen as the ones that dared to rebel, that dared to fight back and dared to fight for our survival. So let us not forget, the opposition to multiculturalism and globalism is shared by Europeans around the world. When the Berlin Wall fell, there were Confederate battle flags there. The idea that communism has finally fallen, and of course now, in a tragic turn of events, Germany is under a worse occupation than it was under the Soviets, under Angela Merkel. At least the Soviets, as despotic as they were, weren't trying to literally destroy the German people from the entire face of the planet. Angela Merkel is trying to do that. But Confederate battle flags were there. So when I say that Governor Wallace and others had support, they had support on both sides of the Mason-Dixon line. They had support in Europe. They had support from around the world of people that stood against globalism. But Wallace moved out of the schoolhouse steps. And of course, Governor Wallace then, in 1972, well, he wasn't going to defend segregation anymore. He just wanted to talk about states' rights. But maybe that would include states having the right to have separate institutions or separate rules, but maybe. He started kind of sounding like a Tea Party guy. And of course, after the assassination attempt against him, decades later, came to truly betray us. He groveled in front of the media and in front of the entire world to say, I was wrong. And what he's saying is not that he was wrong. He was saying we were wrong. And our people were duped into supporting men without backbones, men without spines. We cannot trust the conservatives. To turn back to South Africa really briefly, as apartheid was coming to an end, South African Constitution is supposed to guarantee every ethnic group in South Africa has a right to self-determination in their own land. The Afrikaners and the Boers wanted the creation of a Volksstaat, a people's state, their own home, saying, all right, if we're not going to have this institution, at least let us have our own piece of this pie. Let us mind our own business and opt out. And they were betrayed. They didn't get that Volksstaat. What was the reason? The conservatives, generals, military men who swore an oath to defend their nation, defend their people, they got a really good deal from Nelson Mandela. They got to go on a lot of talk shows. They got to go and get a lot of accolades from around the world about how they fought against evil, white supremacy and patriarchy and all those evil isms that the left likes to throw out for the definition of organic society. But the conservatives, at the last moment, betrayed their people and now their people are facing genocide. We must understand in this battle that reform is not possible because the institutions are stacked against us, but the conservatives, from the very beginning, are actively opposed to us. How many people have you talked to in your life that say, well, I agree with you, but I could never say it out loud? I could never say it out loud. These people are cowards. These people absolutely are telling you the very survival of their ethnic community, their extended family, isn't worth being called a racist. How spineless is that when you look at our ancestors who have fought for millennia to get us here, sacrificed on the battlefields of Tours, pushing back the Islamic invasion when it was less than 50 miles from Paris. Under the banner of the hammer and the cross, Charles Martel and his Franks sallied forth and gave their blood to defend all of Europe. Constantinople, we just had the anniversary of the fall of Constantinople, which again, if we want to look at who's really opposing us, who opened the gates of Constantinople? But for hundreds of years, Constantinople stood, attacked dozens of times, where its defenders protected Europe, where our men died on the battlefields at Lepanto and Vienna and 1,000 other battlefields, again, baptizing our land with their blood and the blood of our enemies to ensure that we could be here today. To think that a peasant farmer who has never gone more than 20 miles from the place of his birth could pick up a sword and march hundreds of miles in the worst elements to go fight for the very idea of Christendom and of Europe. If he could do that, and we deal today with conservatives that don't have the backbone to be called a name. I learned when I was in elementary school, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. But to these people, words are the most effective weapon against them. Our very people have been pushed to the brink of our own extinction with words. Not with tanks, not with bombs, not with chemical weapons, not with anything other than words. Of people risking having their feelings hurt. Not being able to go to the local book club, not being able to go and sit at the Kiwanis Club or the local lodge or whatever and have someone say, did you really say that white people have a right to exist? That social pressure has broken our people. And these conservatives are on the side of the enemy. They are actively working against us. So we have to identify the battle line is, and this will be expounded upon. I don't want to steal your later part of your speech, Dr. Hill. But you can either be a nationalist or a globalist. There is no in between. And Dr. Hill will say it a lot better than I can, so look forward to that. But with demographics as destiny, in this American empire, let's say, hypothetically, these conservatives that actively work against us and have for generations, actually got their stuff together and rallied to us. Well, it's too late. If the Republican Party went full nationalist and actually wanted to be able to support our right as a people to self-determination, wanted to stop the invasion of millions of racial aliens into our land, it's already too late. When Texas, the great state of Texas, the men like Sam Houston fought for, that our great heroes died in places like the Alamo to secure for us, the Southern people. Texas is going Democrat very shortly. Most polls say by 2024. And that's because of the Hispanics that are already here. And politics is just a substitute, as von Clausewitz pointed out. Politics is just war by other means. So we must understand that these other tribes, human history, is nothing but a history of tribes fighting one another. Because there's only so much space, there's only so much resources, and if you're weak, another people will come and take everything you have, including the shirt off your back and your daughter. This is the state we are facing. These foreign peoples understand supporting democratic policies benefit them and hurt us. And in this conflict, that is exactly what they are doing. They are conquering the land that we took with our own blood, with ballots. And once Texas goes Democrat, even if the Republicans went nationalist, they are going to have control of the United States Senate, of the United States presidency, and very soon, the United States House, within just a few election cycles, if current trends continue, which it looks like they will, or get worse, the House is simply going to be made up of Southern representatives, whites from the Midwest, and we're going to live in a one-party state. I know many of you feared Hillary Clinton's election. What do you think of a future of only Hillary Clintons? Actually, probably Hillary Clinton being a moderate, the best we could hope for in a Democratic one-party state. Because the Democratic Party, if you want to look at the people they're raising up, they actually have people who ran to be the next head of the DNC who flat out say, whites should sit down. You shouldn't even speak. Your time is over. We need not just open borders that are porous, open the gates. If we think demographics are bad now, they are only going to get worse under a one-party state led by the Democratic Party. And again, that's just taking into account the idea that Republicans would actually rally on our side. Our future as a people is dependent on us and us alone. There is no aid coming to save us from the institutions already in existence because there's too much money. There's too much power. There's too many lobbying deals you can get. Dr. Hill and I were talking over breakfast this morning about how insane it is John McCain, as a senator from Arizona, a state that is facing Hispanicization at a record rate, would be campaigning for amnesty. Because that's the end of his political future. But he's not really thinking about politics, most likely. He's thinking about the accolades he'll receive. He's thinking about the book deal he's going to receive. He's thinking that he's going to be considered in the annals of history, if whites as a people fall, he'll be considered one of the good ones. Our people are facing off against the united foe of the so-called left and the so-called right that want nothing more than our destruction. If we cannot vote our way out of this empire, if we cannot vote our way out of this institution to make things better, independence is the only path to survival. There is no way to reform the American system. Because to identify the fact, and it's actually liberating, like let's consider it, because in the back of your head, there really would be a push to think, well, maybe it'll just get better. Maybe we can just push the GOP talking points to the right a little bit, and we'll get something, and it'll be okay. It's liberating. It is truly liberating to know that there is no aid coming except from heaven in this struggle. Because that means we have to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, to look at our brothers and sisters, and to know that it is up to us and us alone to achieve these objectives. We are not going to find anything from this system. There's been a flood into our nation and into the empire at large. And that flood is 200 years of pent-up liberalism. And of course, demographic changes. We see within the American empire that the institutions that were supposed to protect us from tyranny, that were supposed to protect us as a distinct people, because let's remember, I can critique the founders, as long as there's daylight out, and I'm not going to bore you guys that much. But let's remember, the founders passed the first immigration law that limited immigration to white persons of good moral character, telling us that there was not only an ethnic component to our nation, or at that time 13 nations. Let us not forget that Great Britain had 13 peace treaties at the end of the so-called American Revolution. Each of our states was considered a separate nation to the degree they had to make peace with all of us separately. That is how distinct we were. To remember that our culture and our identity, from the Cavaliers of Virginia, all throughout, I'm not even going to talk about New England, actually, that's a whole cluster right there. I'm not even going to go into that. But amongst the Southern people, we had distinct identities. We were our own independent nation states. And we came together to pass the first immigration law to say that there was an ethnic and a moral component to nationhood. The idea that we would not demographically displace ourselves, the idea that we would not socially fall into the degeneracy that we now see today. These levees that were put into place have burst. And we saw that in 1954 with Brown v. Board of Ed. We see that in the 1965 Immigration Act. We see that in Roe v. Wade. And we see that in the legalization of same-sex marriage, whatever that is. And of course, that's not where it ends. Sorry guys, the ride doesn't stop. It gets worse. And there are ladies present, so I'm not going to go into all the obscene so-called laws and rights that have been upheld now in European countries. Again, the very heart of Christendom, the very heart of European civilization. They have passed some of the most obscene laws that hurt our children, our women, and I legitimately hate to say, but even animals, in the most depraved ways. In European countries where our heroes originally came from, where our people were forged, they have destroyed the moral character of our nation. To move forward, we must identify this, that there is an ethnic component to our nation. There is also a cultural and moral foundation to our nation. There's a lot of white people out there in North America. A lot of white people. I don't like most of them. I don't. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't actually like most of them. I don't actually want to live with them. I don't want them sending their kids to school with my kids. Because I've been to Portland. I've been to Seattle. And if you want to look and see at how far our people can fall as Europeans, because let's remember, the West Coast was originally settled in many ways by our people. After the war, the Southern people, so much was destroyed, they were looking for a new place for their families. They went out west. States like Oregon put in their state constitution that future rocket scientists and heart doctors and all those sorts of things that they love to tell us about diversity weren't even allowed to live in the state. That wasn't New England Puritans coming up with those state laws. Those were Southerners that understood that our people, wherever we were, needed to be able to have our own home. But how far things have fallen on the West Coast goes to show the color of your skin is important. That means your shared ethnic heritage. That means we are a people. But your citizenship in that people, just like being in an ancient tribe, say in Scotland or Ireland or Germany, or in any other place in Europe, also means holding up to basic principles and standards. You could be exiled from your tribe if you did not uphold those basic standards. And I hate to say it, but the majority of white people in America do not uphold any share of the standards that we need as a nation. We must cultivate virtue. We must cultivate morality. Because how many of you, I'm going to do a show of hands, how many of you have gone to a public demonstration with a league or another nationalist organization? Raise your hands. Okay, very, very good show. So, what we identify within this principle, how many people have ever been faced off against anti-fascists, against leftists? How many have faced off against the enemy? Okay, almost everyone. What's the color of the skin of the majority of the people we face off against?
White.
Yep. The boot boys of our enemies are actually comprised, majority of our own people, that have taken their citizenship in our tribe, in our nation, and they've burned it. They've burned their very ties with us as a people. So to understand, when we have a free Dixie, not if, when we have a free and independent Dixie, and I believe throughout the United States, if we look as the chairman of the Traditionalist Worker Party, we support secession and regionalism. The future that I believe in, as the name's been promoted on The Right Stuff and other nationalist publications, the idea of the Amerikaner, of a distinct white Christian people from the American Midwest, which of course many of our ancestors, my wife was born in Indiana, but her family's from Eastern Kentucky. I'm a Southerner. I was born in Maryland, which the old Lion State, we've been trying to keep the enemy back for a long time. But my family is originally from North Carolina. So you see where our people and our distinct culture has spread throughout the American Empire. Wherever we are, a garden appears of our values and our virtues and our identity. I even have a friend out in Montana, and every summer they have a Southern get-together where all the descendants of Dixie come together with their state flags to eat Southern food, to sing Southern songs, and remember that while they might be thousands of miles away from the heart of the Southland, they're still Southerners. But I believe in a future where regionalism and our distinct identities, this isn't about making someone from Indiana or Michigan a Southerner, or making a Southerner just simply a white person. No, we have a distinct identity. We are distinct people. But the future of the American Empire for Europeans must be one where we have independent homelands according to our traditions and values spread throughout North America. This is the future of secession, not just for us, but the total death of the American Empire. Because if we don't balkanize the entirety of America, think they're not going to come for you? Because we could declare independence, but they'll send their tanks, send their bombs, and to that, I say, as nationalists have before, we will not capitulate. But I prefer not having to go through that. I will if I have to, and I know you would too. But we must look towards the total balkanization of the United States Empire. For whites working together on both sides of the Mason-Dixon and throughout the United States to end this failed multicultural experiment once and for all. Because we must end America. I'm sorry, it sucks. And there's a part of me, after, I hate to say it, maybe hanging out with some buddies after a few beers, Toby Keith comes on the radio and it starts to grate, but if there's enough lubrication, I might feel just a little twinge. I don't actually feel patriotism. It actually hurts to think that what I was raised with, because I was raised knowing that I had Confederate ancestors, knowing I was raised in the South. Actually, my hometown of Poolesville, Maryland, funny enough, made Time magazine in 1956 because they were integrating about a dozen blacks into our schools, and over 90% of the Poolesville parents pulled their children out, and they had to bring in police to hunt them down in barns to drag them into school. And the National States Rights Party actually held a huge rally that was attended by the majority of my town. I was raised knowing this, knowing that my people had a distinct identity. But we must understand that the America I was also raised with, the idea of bald eagles and flags and hot dogs and trucks, I guess. I mean, you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel when your identity is based around your mode of transportation. I mean, or the type of camouflage that you happen to wear. You're really digging at the bottom of the barrel. But we must remove from ourselves any sentimental ties to the American Empire. This cultural secession precedes political secession. There is nothing good to be found in romanticizing our occupiers. Because if you were to go and talk in the early 1800s to a Greek citizen, wouldn't you call them a traitor if they idealized the Ottomans and elements of their culture, the forces that were occupying you? You would view them as a traitor to their nation. Well, if we understand that we live in bondage, there is nothing for us to romanticize or love about the empire that is trying to kill you. Let me say it again. To kill you. Nothing.
That's right.
It's actively working against you. And I say this, and I know there's a lot of veterans here. Men I respect. Men I would take a bullet for. But when you're talking to a 17 or 18-year-old Southerner, and they're talking about serving in the military, serving the empire, what would you say if you were a Serb or a Romanian under the Ottomans, and they wanted to join the Janissaries, the military force made up of your sons who occupy your land and are utilized to kill your other European brothers and sisters? You would say, you don't want to be a traitor to your nation, do you? You don't want to be a traitor to your people or to your future. This is not to dismiss the sacrifices made by men who served. Men like Mike Tubbs. Man I would literally take a bullet for. and I consider my brother. I don't mean to speak ill of you in any capacity. But this next generation, as we see where the American empire and the war machine is grinding forward, they use our bodies and our blood to pave the road to globalism. We must culturally secede in thought, mind, and deed, because reform is impossible. We cannot feed into the beast any longer, because the longer we feed in the beast because of our sentimental attachment to the America that never really was, but maybe once was, in our hearts and our minds, the stories our grandparents told us, is only furthering our occupation. We are a people under siege, and we are an independence movement. If we look around the world to other independence movements that are rising throughout the world, we must think and act like them. You must think and act Southern. You must think and act white. Because this empire is doing everything it possibly can to destroy that. Our cultural secession is built up in things you do every day. I know in your packets, go ahead and look through them, there's amazing materials in there. One of the sections is by Southern. The idea when you go to the grocery store, secede. When you go to fill up your car or your truck, secede. Don't go to the gas station owned by foreigners. Go to the one owned by the guy you go to church with. And if you've got to drive an extra 10 minutes to get to that gas station, do it. Strike a blow against the empire every single opportunity you can. And that's not with guns and bombs. That's with your money, your mind, and your actions. We can break our people from this system that holds us in slavery through where you buy your food, from what venues you go to, from what films you watch. Don't go to the movie theater to watch Jewish propaganda that hates you. Like, are you crazy? The very idea that we as Southern nationalists, and white nationalists in general, are paying our occupiers for the pleasure to mock us, that's absolute lunacy. Your money talks. I mean, it doesn't talk a lot. That whole fiat currency, Federal Reserve thing kind of sucks. But it does talk. And you need to remember this. Do not pay your occupiers for the pleasure of beating you down. This is dependent on every single one of us. And tell your neighbors. They might not be League members. They might not be Traditionalist Worker Party members. They might not be members of any nationalist organization. But they know something's wrong. Encourage them. I mean, even as I was driving down here, kind of a funny thing. See the billboards for motels. Usually not chains, but motels that say American owned. That just sounds like good schools, doesn't it? It's one of those buzzwords. It's kind of funny. Stay there if you can. And I know this isn't going to be easy, but this cultural secession, our economic secession, trade with one another. There are men in this room who I know, because I know you personally, have a multitude of skills that can repair engines, that can grow food, that can manufacture tremendous things, do electrical work. Get out of the system. And I'm not asking you to go live as a hermit. I'm asking you to support your brothers and sisters, because you know what? An exchange of labor between two nationalists, government doesn't get a piece of that. You're not cheating your taxes. You're helping your buddy move. And you know what? If he needs some work done on his house, you repay him for that in sacrifice. These levels of cultural secession are showing that we're not trying to reform. We're trying to build a future. Because our future is going to be done through blood, sweat, and tears. It's done through sacrifice. It's done through supporting one another and viewing the nation not as you as an individual or a nuclear family. The nuclear family is a modern invention. It really is. It's a truly modern invention. We've always believed in the extended family. And the extended family bleeds due to intermarriage between different families into the community. And that bleeds into the state, that bleeds into the region, that bleeds into the entire nation, where we are connected together. You are my brothers and my sisters. We must think and act in ways to help one another, to create businesses, opportunities, lodging for comrades who are in need. Whatever we can do to remove our consent from the empire is crucial, because we don't consent. I don't consent to living in slavery. My second child is about to be born. I have an almost 2-year-old son. And when I look him in the eyes, am I going to say to him, I'm just going to take the easy way for how I spend my money or how I act or what I do? Or am I going to tell him, I'm going to do everything, including give my own life, so that you can live, and that millions of children like you can have a future? I know what I want to tell him. And because you're here today, I know what you want to tell your children. We must break the back of this empire. And of course, that is why within the Traditionalist Worker Party, the League of the South, and other groups, this is what we're fighting for. A future, an independent future, where no globalist bank, no multinational corporation, and no politician. I hate politicians. And I know as a chairman of a political party, you must say, well, Heimbach has some self-loathing issues, right? But I'm not a politician. Men like Dr. Hill are not politicians. We're men, and so are you. Every single one of you here today are advocates, fighting for your family. Politicians, you've all probably seen the meme. I love it. Holly, Benny, ticks, blood-sucking, disgusting parasites. Those are politicians. Men and women that make money off of your suffering. And when we know the suffering about lifting our brothers and sisters up, and I know I'm coming to the end of my time, but remember the suffering our people are facing and what your actions to lift them up can do. If we're not trying to reform, but instead trying to build something new, build a nation from the ashes of this satanic empire, this is done through lifting our brothers and sisters up. Our people, especially in the South, throughout Appalachia and the Rust Belt, are suffering the highest rates of drug overdoses, deaths, of any ethnic group. And even comparing it by capita, in terms of population numbers, our numbers are obscenely higher than any other ethnic group. Our brothers and our sisters are drowning in Oxycontin. They're drowning in street heroin. They're drowning in methamphetamine. Why are they doing this? We're a proud people. Why are our people killing themselves? The suicide rate amongst middle-aged white men has shot up an insane amount since 2008. It's happening because they don't have hope, because they don't think anyone has their back. And we as nationalists have a duty and a responsibility to have our people's back. We must not look at scorn with a brother that's fallen into addiction, or a brother that's fallen into chronic unemployment. He just feels, what's the point? They took my job. And actually, in most cases, probably wasn't a Mexican. It was a guy sitting in a boardroom in New York City. He took your job to another country. And you know what? When those workers start to get a little better standard of living, and they start to get maybe a little organized, because, I like my workers like I like my sock drawer organized. It's funny to me because I'm a socialist. That's fine. They're going to take it to a different country. That's what's going to happen. This global race to the bottom, that's what globalism is. It's that human beings, cultures, religion, identity don't matter to these politicians and these bankers and these forces of power. They actively hate anything organic, because organic things maybe you will go buy from that Southern-owned business. You will go to have your business done with a fellow nationalist. Or maybe someone from your church. Might not even be a nationalist, just a guy you know from your church. Or the guy who lives down the street. That gets in the way of maximizing profits at the sake of anything else. That is the global system we live in. This race to the bottom is driving not only us as whites, or us as Southerners, but the entire world under an economic and social boot heel, where they will destroy anything that is organic. Hopefully I'm not going to burst into flames here, but Noam Chomsky, of course, the leftist, actually had a very interesting critique of global capitalism. And he said first it starts off as, I hate to use those terms, but it starts off as racist, right? Because you can go to different groups and exploit their labor and their resources, but eventually you look around and you realize all these organic things get in the way. If I can go, like when I was in Greece, and I was looking at the Acropolis, something our European ancestors built thousands of years ago, survived the Turkish occupations and the wars, that still survives, and my head goes down, and there's a McDonald's. This is the destruction of organic culture. When I walk down a street in Athens, American chain, American chain, American chain, oh, a British chain, that's kind of the same thing, but okay. There weren't any Greek businesses. They were global corporations, and global corporations like McDonald's are no more American, whatever that means, than they are Saudi or they are Kenyan. They are simply built on the principle of maximizing profit. So if we understand where our economic and social decisions come in, literally deciding where you buy things and trading labor with your brothers and sisters is a blow against the globalist empire. This isn't just happening here. It's happening around the world. And that is why we must stand in solidarity with our comrades around the world. Like Golden Dawn in Greece, the National Democratic Party in Germany, other European comrades that are fighting for a free world, one where we will not be sent to butcher one another. Because I know this, if you went and talked to a Union soldier, 1861, and said, so here's what's gonna happen. We're gonna burn the South, and then we're gonna take half of these black people and bring them to your community, and then we're gonna forcibly integrate your schools, and then your great-great-great-grandson is gonna become a transvestite. And then your great-great-great-great-grandson is going to live as a minority on the land that you're fighting for. How does that sound? He'd throw his gun down. He wouldn't have done that. And let's remember, the role of globalism, when Judah P. Benjamin went to ask for money for the Confederacy, they said, no, these bankers kind of like where this American empire thing is going. They saw what was being built. Our Southern men, it was actually ironic, we were holding our event in Pikeville that the League represented so strongly at, and I really, really appreciate that, standing together in Pikeville. Local lawmaker, a Democrat, white guy, but from there, but he's a Democrat, is renaming 2 roads because the evil Southern nationalists and white nationalists came to Pikeville for 2 soldiers killed in World War II. 2 men who died in World War II fighting in the European theater. Same question. If you were to go back in time, tell those 2 guys, okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I know we're fighting against like this idea of like the Germans expanding to Eastern Europe. No, forget that. We're gonna give half of Europe to the communists, and then they're gonna kill like 60 million people. It's gonna be great. And then Western Europe, we're gonna come over, we're gonna destroy the churches, destroy the institutions, and then demographically displace all the Europeans there. And then when they're full up of Somalis and so-called Syrians and Kenyans, we're gonna bring them to your community, and then we're gonna send all your jobs overseas, oh, and the Federal Reserve's gonna take all your money. What? I thought I was fighting against tyranny. No. We're gonna have this like really friendly tyranny that's just gonna destroy everything we know. Those guys wouldn't have gotten on the landing craft. They'd been like, man, I forgot something back in Kentucky. Just give me a second, and then everyone would come back. This is a worldwide struggle. But remember, our people and our choices are used to bludgeon our fellow nationalist comrades around the world. This must be a world of nations, of proud nations, strong nations, independent and sovereign nations. Ones that we can usher in peace and prosperity, because the enemy, the globalists, they only want war. They only want misery. We've read 1984. How do they justify the tyranny against the people in Oceania? Oh, they do it through constant conflict. They like the suffering on our streets. They like the rape gangs in Rotherham in the UK. They like the military deaths. They like all of these things because it justifies their budgets. It justifies their imperial conquests. So brothers and sisters, this is a local struggle that you fight every day, but it's also a worldwide one, where we as nationalists and as patriots must come together. So in closing, apologize I talked so long, but I've got 2 minutes. I really appreciate being here and looking at such strong men and women. But remember this, there is no help coming. If you want a free and independent Dixie and the death of the empire that is going to make us and our children footnotes in history for some Chinese student 1,000 years from now to read about and go, why did they kill themselves? Why did they let this happen? If you think about that, if we don't win, we will be a footnote in history, just like the Carthaginians are to us. I'm not going to let that happen. And I know you're not going to let that happen, because we are a race and a people of conquerors, of warriors, who when our backs are against the wall, we stand, we fight, and we win. The struggle is not going to be easy, and it's not going to come, our final victory will not come from the Republican Party, or the Constitution, or limited government and tax cuts, which always seems to increase the military budget. Really, it's almost like they have these imperial ambitions or something. But it's going to come from us, in what you do in your communities every single day. You are an ambassador. You are a missionary for our people, for our race, for our culture, for our faith. Your duty is to go out every single day and say there's a better path. There's a vision of a free South, one that we will build through our sacrifice, through our martyrdom, and through our sweat. But this free land will be built, and the American empire will die. So comrades, join with me. Join with the League. Join with the TWP if you want to run for office. But join. Get involved. And in everything that you do, remember, you're a soldier in this fight. For our female comrades, your support makes this possible. Literally, makes everything possible. Makes a house a home and a nation a place I actually want to live. The children you raise, that is a victory for our people every time you have a kid. And you as male activists, be there on the front lines. Don't let me and Dr. Hill and Mr. Tubbs and the other patriots that I've stood with more than a few times, don't leave us on the battle lines. Join us. Stand with us, fight with us, and win with us, because our victory is guaranteed by God Almighty, because the truth shall triumph in this struggle, and the truth is on our side. Hail victory.